This is Talk Business and Politics with Roby Brock.
I'm Roby Brock. Welcome to today's Talk Business and Politics Daily. It's Wednesday, January 18th. Here are your top stories of the day. Daisy Outdoor Products will expand its Rogers facility and add about 24 jobs in the next 2 years, company leaders announced on Wednesday, alongside Governor Asa Hutchinson at the Shooting, Hunting, Outdoor Trade Show, known as the SHOT Show, in Las Vegas. The company that owns Daisy also owns Gamo Outdoor USA, and it plans to consolidate operations for the two airgun makers into its Rogers facility, relocating Gamo's headquarters from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. About 25 manufacturing jobs will be added in Arkansas. Governor Asa Hutchinson raised more than $800,000 for his re-election campaign during his first event January 5th, according to his chief political strategist. That event was a casual reception at the Capitol Hotel in Little Rock, attended by more than 400 people. You can read reports on other constitutional officer candidates at talkbusiness.net. And the first plank of the governor's $5.5 billion budget plan that would provide a $50.5 million tax cut to the state's lowest wage earners breezed through a Senate panel on Wednesday. Senate Bill 115, which gives tax breaks to those making less than $21,000, could be considered by the full Senate as early as Thursday and sent to the House. And you can keep up with those stories each and every day at our newly designed website at talkbusiness.net. Still to come, John Brummett on the Trump inauguration, plus Randy Zook with the Arkansas State Chamber shares his group's legislative agenda. Please stick around.
Arkansas Electric Cooperative Corporation provides electric energy across 2/3 of Arkansas. This is an exciting time in our energy history, with incredible progress being made in renewable energy and storage technologies. As our energy portfolio continues to diversify, we'll maintain an all-the-above strategy to provide reliable and affordable electricity. Ever since the first light bulbs were placed in our members' homes, the electric cooperatives have been the solutions provider for our members, and we want to continue that well into the future.
Each day, the promise of our nation begins again. Arkansas and America, moving forward. I help make that promise a reality. It's not for everyone, but people everywhere depend on us.
Oh, I love you too, sweetie.
Trucking delivers, or everything stops. And that's what drives me.
I did.
Well, it's not Monday. It was a holiday week this week, but we do have John Brummett in studio. So it's Wednesday, therefore it's John Brummett's day this week.
Whatever you say, whenever you'll accept my presence, I will be here.
Let's talk about what is going on. We have later on this week the Trump inauguration.
Yes.
You going to be there for it?
I'm going to miss it.
You're not going to be there for it?
I'm going to boycott it. No, I'm going to miss it.
Where's your sense of country, John?
It's,
Why do you hate America so much, John, as they would say?
Yeah, I don't. I'm just going to miss this particular inauguration.
Let's talk about what has been happening really just in the last week or so, we could say. You've got I call it the Trump pre-inauguration chaos. You have got all of the nominees up on Capitol Hill in some sort of different settings there. You've got McCain taking on everybody from John Lewis, civil rights icon, to China and NATO. I mean, this is what we're in store for the next 4 years. John McCain, I think, said that he's fighting too many windmills. I think that's an accurate description. What do you think?
Yeah, I think he is. Just this afternoon, or sometime today, or yesterday, he tweeted that these approval rating polls are no good. They're rigged against him. Right. Any perceived slight gets reacted to, apparently by this man personally, in the social media platform Twitter, and that's the primary concern that I have with him. I'm less worried about the policies, oddly enough, than this guy's temperament, his behavior. Mm-hmm. We used to have this word, and perhaps we still do, and it was hard to define, but we would say that something was presidential, and if a president behaved in a way that he shouldn't, we will say he's not being presidential. When Bill Clinton accepted a question and answered it at an MTV event about whether he wore boxers or briefs, that's not presidential. Mm-hmm. Obviously, when Bill Clinton cavorted with the intern, that was not presidential. for Nixon to go crazy and talk to the paintings. That was not presidential. Trump is not presidential ever. Every day he is unpresidential, and by his megalomania and his narcissism and his hypersensitivity and his irresponsible, overstated combativeness, such as saying civil rights hero. Whose name?
John Lewis.
John
He
Lewis.
said he was all talk, no action.
Yeah, well, his life.
A guy that got beat.
A guy who
to a near pole.
spent his early life protesting in dangerous situations for civil rights advancement, and even got his skull fractured. Somebody, it'd be presidential not to pick that fight and to know better than to say such a thing. So what we're getting as we embark on this presidency is policy that is uncertain, but the secondary concern to this man's behavior. And it's been that way throughout, and it has not changed. And I am to assume he will continue to tweet wildly from the Oval Office, which I find one of the most, if you had told me 2 years ago that would happen, I would have thought you were utterly crazy.
Well, it would be good column fodder for you in the,
in
the short term and the long term.
Maybe, even though I think this thing is developing that his tweets are like Snapchat. Isn't that the one where your messages disappear?
Yes.
And people are saying, we're going to get tired of this nonsense, we're going to get used to it, and we're going to wait to see what he actually does. And that is where he actually could recover. If he could get down to passing something and take our attention off his personal demeanor, it would be the most beneficial thing for him, if not the country.
Let's bring Donald Trump to Arkansas. You've written a piece for our new 2017 State of the State report, Talk Business and Politics, our magazine, about how Arkansans are going to function, particularly Arkansas politicians like Asa Hutchinson. Yeah. How are they going to function in the Trump world? What was your big takeaway from that article?
My big takeaway is they're like the rest of us. They're beholding a man who got an enormous percentage in Arkansas, who's very popular in Arkansas, that being Trump. Asa Hutchinson has a quote in there. He said, "It remains to be seen whether Donald Trump redefines the Republican Party," and it does. I mean, the president of that party, his agenda, his behavior, his actions, his policies, those will drive what the party becomes. But through all that, there is a deep willingness to give him every benefit of the doubt because he is so popular in the state, and to look on the bright side of what he's done, assembling a cabinet that generally is competent and pursuing policies, we think, that will be favorable to Arkansas. For Asa Hutchinson's role, and I think a lot of Republican legislators, for their part, if he'll just repeal the individual mandate on Obamacare and let Medicaid expansion continue with a block grant that lets them run it the way they want to, they're going to love Donald Trump.
And appoint a conservative Supreme Court justice.
Well, yes, of course. How could I forget that? And I assume that nomination will be forthcoming very soon.
I think so. All right. In the Arkansas legislature, we had our pomp and circumstance of week one. We're in our lull of week two, driven in part by the fact that there will be some Republicans in Washington, D.C. towards the tail end of this week. The big tax cut debate that was shaping up to, do we do $50.5 million as the governor wants or larger, that one's pretty much confined now, I think, to the $50.5 million.
By promising Charlie Collins and Bart Hester there'll be a task force to cut taxes more deeply for higher incomes.
Right.
That's worked out.
But the military retirement benefits,
the popular
tax
one,
cut,
right,
yes, seems to have some resistance from the Manufactured Housing Association, and it is growing. Is there an alternative being searched for, do you think?
I'm sure there is. It's just a few $1 million, and not that that's easy, but this is fascinating. The idea that we would cut taxes, exempt military veterans' retirement income from taxes. Wildly popular notion. Nobody wants to be against that. But on this part of the tax, Hutchinson did not want it to be a cut from the Treasury. He insisted on what's called pay-as-you-go, or make up the money elsewhere. So he chopped together some ways, chopped together a few ways to raise some money to offset that $13 million. Those, if you really want to get technical, are tax increases. So what you're doing is forcing this legislature, this arch-conservative, right-wing, anti-government legislature, to do what amounts to tax increases, and one of them is to restore sales tax on manufactured housing, mobile homes, which affects a lot of people in Arkansas. And by the way, the Manufactured Housing Association, they have a lobbyist, you know, who's hanging out with the legislators explaining the folly of that. So while the income tax cut for poor people is going along swimmingly, because they're going to let Charlie Collins and Bart Hester cut rich folks' taxes next time. They've committed to that. The concurrent proposal to give military veterans a break on their taxes on their retirement income is in trouble, not because of it, but because Hutchison wanted to make up the money. Making up the money, I think, is going to be a problem generally with this legislature. But they can probably find that amount some other way, but I don't think they're going to be able to tax mobile homes.
I agree with you. I think they find an alternative on that. He is John Brummett. He writes for the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. As always, good to have you with us.
My pleasure.
Nice to see you.
Okay.
We'll see you next week.
All right.
All right. We'll be back with more right after this.
Circuits turn on the lights by making a connection, by closing the loop. At Entergy, we believe our economy is circular too. What you put in comes back. So we invest billions in new infrastructure, which helps attract new industry, which helps create new jobs. We partner with local communities to electrify the economy. And together, we power life. Entergy.
When was the last time you felt free? It's time to uncover that feeling again with the compassion of a cross and shield, accepted by over 90% of doctors and specialists, and the power of a card that opens doors in all 50 states, giving you the freedom to love, to dream, to dance like no one is watching. Arkansas Blue Cross and Blue Shield. Live fearless.
Randy Zook is the longtime leader of the Arkansas State Chamber of Commerce and Associated Industries of Arkansas. Those groups represent the state's biggest and smallest business interests. I caught up with Zook to hear about a few items on the Chamber's legislative to-do list.
Really, everything we're focused on is in terms of what can create a healthier economy in the state, what can make for a better business climate, what can make for an environment where people can find better jobs and more jobs, frankly. It's going to start with something around workers' comp. We need to mitigate the cost of workers' comp to offset the change or the elimination of the death and total and permanent disability fund. So that's an item high on our list. Secondly, it will be some way to end up eliminating the sales tax on repair parts for machinery and equipment for manufacturers. And that's kind of a trade-off on some other areas to help offset the budget impact, and that'll take several years to phase it in. So that's a big deal for us as well. Then we want to continue to reduce the cost of unemployment insurance for employers because we've got a very healthy unemployment insurance trust fund now. We've gone from a deficit just a few years back, and I mean 4 or 5 years back, I guess 5 or 6 maybe, when we were as far as $360 million underwater and in debt to the feds for unemployment benefits. And now we've got about $500 million sitting in our trust fund. And by the end of next year, it'll be over $600 million. So it's time to mitigate the cost of that. We've got a well-funded system that provides competitive benefits relative to surrounding states, and we need to mitigate the cost to our employers, the people who pay the full cost of that benefit or that protection. Then we've got some other bills that are more esoteric or a little more complicated about tax issues like net operating loss carry forward and something called the throwback rule, which I can't even begin to explain it, but it's important, and some other things along those lines, but really down in the weeds kind of things. And then some general interest items like education reform. We continue to support education reform every chance we get, and that would include the school board election dates, and then something focused, we hope, on third grade reading levels. We just have to deal with the fundamental stuff like kids at the end of third grade who aren't reading at third grade level. So we got to do some things about that. They're big opportunities, big challenges, but we're up for it, and we think we're going to have a really good session.
That's Randy Zook with the Arkansas State Chamber of Commerce and Associated Industries of Arkansas. We're going to hear more from him throughout the session. Well, that is all for today's Talk Business and Politics Daily. Thanks for watching and listening. We'll see you tomorrow.